It's kind of Irish
Mm.
way of doing things. Her friend knew someone who was looking for a PA, and I had just done a course. So I met this guy, and he was like, yeah, sure, stay and take the job. And I was like, okay. It was all very relaxed. And okay, well, now I'm in France now. I try not to, be too Irish mummy with them. But that said, the second year in a row, their schools for St. Patrick's Day, they have done Irish dancing and learned an Irish song. And I became a parent. That was the first time I really seriously considered moving back to Ireland. Because it was such a shock to the system. Started, digging into my own reasons for drinking and turning everything around and going alcohol free. And when I decided I wanted to, help other people and coach. And so now expats like to, meet each other over a drink and everything. And it's, until you start questioning it all, you just don't see any other way of doing things, Coach with someone, I start with it 12 weeks, that's 3 months. So
Okay.
It depends. It does depend on the person, but that's when you think about it, that's such a short amount of time when you think of all the years you've been drinking. Action to alcohol sort of kicks off before you've even had that glass. That's like we were talking about, 5 p.m. on a Friday. Your brain is going, come on, lads. Here we go. Come on. And sees the bottle of beer or the glass of wine, or here's that, pop.
This is Expat Experts.
So, welcome to another episode of Expat Experts recorded online. We're taking this advantage of amazing technology to be able to record some episodes with guests that are not. We didn't find the possibility to meet in the same city. Today we will be talking about expat experience, of course, as always, but also the relation of that expat people and people who are living abroad or far away from their homeland has with alcohol, and how to change these drinking habits with a certified coach, Susan Hodgson. I hope I pronounced the surname correctly. Welcome, Susan.
You did, yeah.
You are originally from Ireland, but currently living in Paris or close by Paris, as far as I remember.
That's right, yeah.
So
yeah.
The project that you have on social media and everywhere, it's Lose the Booze with Sus, which is easy to remember. I think it's a cool hashtag. So yeah, before we go dig into your life and your experiences as an expat, I would like to remind everyone who's listening to, as always, follow our social medias, Susan's social media, and everyone, and Instagram, Facebook, and all of this, but also for the podcast, more importantly, that you subscribe to Spotify and YouTube, so you can stay tuned with whatever it's coming as new episodes. With that said, thank you again for accepting and for being here today with us, and looking forward to know about your coaching part. Also, I find it really interesting, the topic and there. But let's first talk a little bit about you.
The Expat, Episode 9 with Susan Hodgson.
And how long have you been living abroad right now?
Well, I realized recently half my life I've been abroad now. So I've been in France for I've been in France for 25 years plus, and with a little stint in Spain before that, and a couple of sort of over and backs to Germany when I was younger. But half my life in France now at this stage. still amazing to me then that I've been here so long. When I only came over for like, you know, a little holiday. But I grew up in the countryside in Donegal in Ireland, Northwest. And I went to college in Dublin. And I'm sort of an accidental expat. I didn't really plan to move abroad. Just sort of, I guess France sort of chose me. When I finished college, like all my friends were sort of heading away or, you know, settling into jobs and things like that. And I sort of tried a bit of teaching and wasn't really for me. And so I was kind of at a stage where I didn't really know what to do. So I came over to France for a little holiday, see my sister and a friend. And 25 years later, so yeah, be careful. Be careful where you go on holidays.
Oh gosh. I mean, I've already lived in 2 countries, so I think I'm jumping through that a little bit at least. So you said though that you lived a little bit before in Spain and Germany. So it wasn't France the first country that you lived abroad then?
No, I did a year or so teaching English in Spain in Oviedo, up north. So that was fun. That was just a year, you know, adventure. I'd never been. It was just one of those things. I was headed over, and why not? You know, I was in my 20s. I was young. I just take the backpack and off I went. You know. So that was fun. That was just for a year teaching, and I'd had as a student, I'd been had a couple of stints in Germany, just working sort of, you know, some summer job type things, 3 or 4 months, you know. So I suppose I kind of had a taste for living outside of Ireland already, you know, even if I hadn't sort of properly decided that I would live abroad, you know.
Interesting, but at the end you just then came back from Germany to France, and then you decided to stay in France. What was the decision what triggered that decision?
Well, there wasn't much of a decision really, because I was working in a bar at home, and my sister was in Paris, and so I was like, well, there's no better time to go to Paris for a visit when my sister's there, and so I took off for a week. And it's kind of Irish way of doing things. Her friend knew someone who was looking for a PA, and I had just done a course. So I met this guy, and he was like, yeah, sure, stay and take the job. And I was like, okay. It was all very relaxed. And okay, well, now I'm in France now. So yeah, I basically just stayed. I came back to Ireland, got some stuff, and came back. On the day after St. Patrick's Day, I officially moved to France for this job, and which was a bit of an experience in itself. It was kind of I think it was a bit of a dodgy setup. They were importing computer hardware from where I don't know to sell to whom I don't know.
Oh gosh!
But they didn't want to pay the. But they didn't want to pay the duty, so everything got stuck in customs, and and it was kind of like, don't answer the phones and that sort of thing, you know. So it was, you know, pay in a paper bag. So it was kind of a weird but funny experience. But that was my first sort of job here. But it was, you know, it gave me a taste for life in Paris, and so obviously I left that one fairly quickly, but I got a taste for life in Paris, and I really liked it, and I loved the atmosphere, and sure, it's Paris, it's beautiful. And so then I sort of, because at that time being an English speaker was like a huge plus on your CV, being a native English speaker, it was like very easy for me to get work in like secretarial roles and PA roles, you know. So I was very lucky in that respect. The time I arrived, they were crying out for native English speakers, you know. So Yeah, so I was lucky in that respect. Yeah.
But I saw another episode. I don't know when it happened actually, but another girl was interviewing you also, and you said that you already speak. Or, I mean, yeah, you've been 25 years. When did you learn French in all of this? Because you said that at this moment it was really cool for you to know English and being a native speaker in English. How did the language barrier was for you when you arrived to Paris?
Well, I did have some French because, like most high schools in Ireland, will have French on the curriculum. And so I studied French at school, and I'm going to say in inverted commas studied at university French, but I was a very bad student. And when I arrived in France, I had basically forgotten everything. And there's a difference between on paper, doing your grammar exercises on paper, and actually going into a boulangerie and ordering a couple of baguettes. Yeah. So it took me a while to like click in. I do remember at the very beginning being absolutely exhausted, trying to concentrate all the time and like figure things out, and like that sort of semi-constant state of confusion. Did I understand that okay, or did I miss something, or so yeah.
You lived in Paris at the beginning? Like, was it you were living in the city center, or?
I was living in my first place. I was a share colocation with two Italians just off Bastille, and then I was living in the Marais. Rue Vieille du Temple, right beside Hotel de Ville, right, very, very central. Like couldn't be more like Parisian. Had like the windy staircase walk up, and the big high ceilings, and gorgeous. Like, so I was living there with a Colombian and a Corsican. So so our place was kind of party central. So it was it was a great experience living right in the middle. It's beautiful.
Nice. Oh, that would have been like a movie, no? Back like living in the center with the whole vibe of the city, I suppose, and everything. Like, it feels like very movie. How do you feel it changed Paris? Like, now I think you are not living anymore in the very center, but a little bit like outside of Paris itself. Did it change a lot during these whole years?
I lived in the Marais for 5 years before I moved in with my now husband. We moved out sort of further out from the center, and now when I go back in, it's like there were a lot of tourists at that time when I lived there, but now it's like the whole vibe has changed, and it's very like expensive shops and lots of boutiques and coffee shops, whereas when I lived there it was still like lots of old style cafes and like old French shops and boulangerie and things like that, and like it was a little bit more dilapidated and less modern looking. So I feel like it's lost a bit of its charm. I mean, it's still beautiful, but it's lost a little bit of its charm, so I think living there now at like Monday to Friday must be a bit of a challenge, not to mention expensive. But but now I'm suburban. When we moved in together, we moved out towards the east.
Well,
so now I live in a little town.
I suppose it's a more calmer.
Well, originally it was to be able to afford somewhere bigger with more space, because you can spend a fortune in Paris for the studio the size of your table. So we moved in together. We basically moved out of the center to get somewhere bigger. And now with the family we live in the burbs, so I can't imagine. Well, I can, because I've seen my friends struggle doing it with buggies and pushchairs and shopping and kids and all that, and 4-story walk-ups, with no lift and too many neighbours, and and all that. So yeah, so I do not mind now being in the suburbs. I enjoy it.
Nice. What about the life difference between Ireland and France? Like, did you notice it? Like, was it really, really different?
I think what I noticed a lot was the speed. I think well, of course, I had been coming from, I wasn't living in the city when I moved over, but at the same time, I mean, I think that, yeah, the speed of Paris and just the more, it was a more kind of exciting vibe. I felt like, everybody was going somewhere to do something like really important and, uh, just a whole different look. I mean, Paris, as I said, is beautiful. And, it felt more it's hard to describe. I guess the atmosphere just felt a little bit more alive, whereas in Ireland I feel it's calmer, it's more chill. It's it sounds like a stereotype, but yeah, it's more calm, yeah. Well, the hustle and the bustle and the people being let's say, not the friendliest. And some, like, I used to get very stressed out if I had any sort of, admin to do, because you'd always have some grumpy person on the end of the phone, sort of, scolding you for not having understood something, or, so in that respect, it was, it was quite, that was a bit of a challenge when I first arrived. Sort of maneuvering through all that, and I suppose that's one of the big things I missed when I first moved over as well, was just like that kind of laid back attitude and just a bit of crack, as we say. But the Irish love to complain as well. Don't get me wrong.
You said I can relate to that. Spanish also love to complain, and Greeks also, I think.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they do. You were just saying like that you had the like that you moved now with your husband, and I know that you have a family now in France. How difficult it's to balance the cultural differences and bringing also a little bit like of, I suppose you try also to bring a little bit of like your Irish cultural and a little bit more like, and bring it to your family and kids. How does that work for you, like the family part of it?
Yeah, that's a good question, really, because I mean, we're not that far away. Like physically, we're not that far away. So we managed to go back to Ireland like once a year at least, and then we WhatsApp, with the family. I've still got my mom is over there, and my sister and her kids. So my kids get to WhatsApp a video with their cousins, and they like, speak English with them, and my little niece will be learning the odd word in French and things like that. And I get like things like, it's funny, but like things like Irish music or things like that. I just remember when I was a kid, not that you'd have it shoved at you, but it was more like kind of, when you're a teenager, you're just like, oh, stop, I don't want to listen to that. I want to listen to my music, and so I try not to, be too Irish mummy with them. But that said, the second year in a row, their schools for St. Patrick's Day, they have done Irish dancing and learned an Irish song, and my son did an expose on Irish sport, and my daughter did an expose on Dublin, and I was like, that didn't come from me, so. So it's kind of nice that they had that, and they were able to say, "Oh, I know that. I've been there, and Mom's Irish, and she told me blah blah blah." So we're not that like far, and in terms of language, we do tend to speak this terrible mix of French and English at home. I mean, I speak mostly English because I want the kids to be able to like have both languages, and also I'm lazy. And so so I will speak in French and in English, and often get a response in French. And they like to sort of make fun of their father's French accent, and then they like to make fun of my grammar mistakes. And my youngest has even started imitating my accent, So it's that nice, fun sort of mix.
Nice. I mean, if they are taking it with the fun part, also like the languages and embracing the multiculturality of it, why not? Like that's the whole objective, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you take that they make fun of your accents. That's the other part, but that's up to you, I suppose.
No, it's funny. Like my little guy, he goes, "No, mommy, no." And we just got back from a weekend in London, because another reason to love France. We had a 5-day weekend. So we were over in London, and they were all practicing how to say a bottle of water, so so it's all good fun. Yeah.
Nice. Have you ever considered going back though to Ireland? I mean, I suppose with the kids it's more complex now and everything, and like they are growing up in France. But was it ever something that you had in your mind?
Well, yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean, for my first 10 years here, the first few years, and then I met my husband, and we moved in together and settled down. Over that space of, it was probably 9 or 10 years. It was all sort of, just great fun, and working and like just, moving on and living your best life. And I have to say, when I became a parent, that was the first time I really seriously considered moving back to Ireland, because it was such a shock to the system, and also that whole expat thing of they do it differently here, they do it differently at home. But at that stage, after about the 10 years, as you know, people tend to move on. They either settle or they move on, or they go, they go back home themselves, or they find a new country to go to. And so at that stage, most of my close friends had already moved on, or either started their own family and moved back home, And my husband was traveling a bit. And when I had our son, that was, I think, the most that I felt foreign in the whole time that I had been here. I really felt like a foreigner, and things. And it's a whole new vocabulary, and you've got to learn about schools and hospitals and doctors' appointments and more admin, more papers. And I think, it's all, I can look back now and say that I felt pretty isolated. And it did occur to me to move back to Ireland, but then economically the situation not great, and my husband had his job, I had my job to go back to, and I just thought, okay, well, let's get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I suppose at that point, it's not longer about not understanding. I don't know. I cannot book a doctor for myself. You're taking care of another person, and the extra responsibility, it's much, much bigger. That's for sure.
Yeah. Gotta get this one right. Yeah.
It's a big decision, that's for sure.
Yeah. But my friends had moved away, but I did meet other sort of Anglo moms. They're always going to be the parent groups and things like that. But most of them as well were kind of suffering a bit, and they were either not, they'd sort of followed their husbands for his job and weren't feeling we're just feeling sort of obligated to be there and dying to get back home, or or also people feeling like me, sort of just isolated and not quite sure not quite sure what they're doing, you know. But yeah. So yeah, that was the time I did seriously consider it.
It helped to have some kind of community around you at that point of time, and that helped you to stay in a place then.
Absolutely, yeah. And even for those like practical questions that you can't find the answer, you know, pages deep in some French admin site, and you're like, I don't understand. So yeah, community is always important. I suppose that's why we expats tend to congregate as well, don't we? So
do you remember what was the most complex part for you when you moved to France at that point of time?
You mean like at the parenthood stage or beforehand?
Beforehand, I mean, like when you arrived, the first thing that when you arrived in France, what was the most, like, I don't know, more complex entering? A lot of people talks about bureaucratic, for example, in that moment.
Yeah, it's awful. The bureaucracy. Well, I think it's maybe better now, but it was just atrocious. It was awful. And at that time, because it's so long ago, I was supposed to have a carte de séjour, a work permit, even though I was European. We still had those. Oh, nightmare. And you know, you had to like have your grandmother's electricity bill in her maiden name and stuff like this to prove who you were, and it was just it was atrocious, yeah, and quite scary because, you know, people cross Parisians would shout at you if you didn't have the right papers, you know, and so it's quite nerve-wracking, you know. But I mean, I think I was very much, you know, I was in my early 20s, I was on an adventure, you know, it wasn't terribly complex because I always sort of had in the back of my mind that I'd just take my backpack and go again, you know. It gets more complex when other people are involved, you know, and you fall in love, and then you're like, oh, well, maybe I can't just, you know, throw my things in a backpack anymore, and off I go. So, but yeah, I think, and also one of the complexities too, I suppose, is like losing touch little by little with your back home friends, you know, because they get on with their lives as well. They whatever, settle down or move on or move away, and I guess it's quite tough to keep those connections going, you know. But then, I mean, it's just a natural part of life, you know, things, you know, fade in, fade out, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Do you remember any funny or crazy story? I mean, you just said, for example, that you needed to give a bill of your grandma. So I think that's kind of crazy on itself already as a story. But any funny story that happened to you while being abroad that you remember especially?
Oh well, apart from my crazy job, and I think it's just, you know, it's like, it's quite funny, that whole state of being in like semi-confusion the whole time. You know, did I get this right? What did I miss? You know, what didn't I understand? You know, those conversations where you think you're having one conversation, but it's actually something completely different. And, you know, and I was like, you know, I sort of didn't mind, you know, going to a cafe or going to a bar with my book and sort of sitting there by myself, you know, and then people would, you know, it's a single female sitting by herself, you know, people coming up, and me, just that kind of whole Irish thing of, where are you from? And, you know, and you know, sort of, you know, t'es pas française, you know, that sort of thing. But yeah, I was just on my little adventure, you know. So
that's nice.
You know, oblivious, my own little world.
I think it's a kind of like also life thing, no? I suppose it's just like, okay, when you're in your 20s and you have the opportunity to live abroad, and it's just like everything seems a little bit more like, it happens, and whatever it happens, no? And then that changes a little bit with time outside.
Yeah.
Good. Then, if that's okay for you, I would say that we can jump directly to the second part of the episode, and then we can talk a little bit more about your current job and not for bringing part of computers without paying customs and this kind of stuff.
The Expert, helping expats quit alcohol.
So basically, as I already mentioned in the introduction, you are a coach, and your current focus right now, like a certified coach, and your current focus, it's like helping people with their drinking habits. I think there is like kind of a very like niche also focused on women, especially. I don't know if I read that properly, or you are like helping generically, but you focus in expats who want to change their drinking habits and change a little bit their lifestyle in that sense, no? Where did that come from? Like where this idea of, or where this target and project started?
Well, I think it was a long time coming. It came from my own experience, my personal experience with alcohol. And I think it like the reason I work with expat women mostly is because of my own experience. As I mentioned before, like I didn't, until I became a parent, I didn't really feel as foreign as that at that moment. Everything previously, like, I mean, I started drinking when in my teens, and of course the whole way up through to like my mid 40s when I stopped. And I think that alcohol had a role in my life, like in each decade, I guess, in my teens, to help me with shyness, some like social anxiety, through my 20s, that whole sort of party Susan, meeting people, fitting in, finding your like expat people, then sort of settling down, getting more sort of, sedentary, and like then it's sort of wine snob Susan, and more sophisticated. And then I think when things became more challenging for me, and I did feel that isolation and the tiredness, the exhaustion that comes with having little kids. I mean, we had our son, and then we had twins, so I had 3 little ones at the same time, and a full-time job, and being abroad. And it's the case for so many women, and it's that huge like feeling of overwhelm and exhaustion and loneliness, because and never sort of having that time for yourself. And my own relationship with drinking, with alcohol at that stage, then became very much a kind of like a reward for my hard work. It was my treat, and it was very much my time at the end of the day. For me, it was for me to have a break. And so many people don't like intentionally use. You're not going to intentionally use wine as a tool, but you fall into that because your entire life, from our kids, we learn that a drink is going to help. If you feel good, have a drink. If you want to celebrate, have a drink. If you feel sad, have a drink. If you're angry, have a drink, you'll feel better, And so you take all that learning with you. Like I said, in my teens, I took that what's the word I'm looking for? Like Dutch courage, when you have a drink and you feel a bit more less inhibited and all the rest. And then through my 20s, and I should say also, like when I was in my late teens, I lost my father, and that was I also, in hindsight, that was something that the drinking helped me kind of avoid for a long time. It's like, I'll just go, I'd like physically move somewhere else and not think about it, So it like takes on a role the longer, as you go on with your life, just naturally does, because it's such an accepted part of society. It's socially acceptable and it's socially like expected, So it is easy to like sort of fall into using it as sort of a coping mechanism and a crutch and that treat. And then the trouble is, because it's actually a drug like any other, it's addictive like any other drug. When you say to yourself, okay, that's enough, I'm starting to feel a bit crap now. It's time to, drink less, not have that wine this evening. You still find yourself with a glass in your hand, And so I think that happens for so many women and expats, because we have that sort of added layer of maybe loneliness, isolation, bit of expat guilt thrown in there as well. Maybe I should have gone home. The family's at home, the sort of I hate that expression, but the trailing spouse. You came for your partner, and maybe what about the whole "what about me" thing, and then women often tend to put themselves last on the list, and so so then it's easy for the wine or the beer or what have you to take on that role of making you feel better and giving you a bit of energy at the end of the day, and all those things.
A lot of social pressure and a lot of so it's like the expat part, but then it's all like woman expat. It's the next level, I suppose. Like there is a whole pressure on top of that, and unfortunately in the societies that we live, that's very present. When in that moment of time, you notice that by your own, like the difference of or it was also because of your own experience, and then you decided to say, okay, no, I want to deal or talk more with women because they are the most affected in this situation.
When I started, digging into my own reasons for drinking and turning everything around and going alcohol free. And when I decided I wanted to, help other people and coach and learn how to coach and learn all about alcohol and how it works. When I went out there, I was like trying to talk to everybody, and save the world, and realized that you can't actually speak to everybody. So who am I going to speak to? It's going to be people that I think are possibly, having the same experience that I had and are feeling the way I felt. More importantly, feeling that that sort of, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just have 2 glasses of wine and go to bed like everybody else, And that feeling of, shame for, not behaving as you want to behave. You want to be the person that, does some yoga and goes to bed, but you're the person in the kitchen with another glass of red when you said you'd go to bed an hour ago, but you have, and so I just thought it was important that I speak to the people that are living that experience that I was. That said, though, I have had expat men reach out to me, because it's not just those expat pressures, those expat layers are not just for women. Obviously, put it on the other side, you've got the expat husband who has uprooted his family and feels enormous amount of guilt for that, and the pressure to succeed where you are, also with the leaving the family behind, older parents and things like that, and the fitting in. We all know expats like to, meet each other over a drink and everything, and it's, until you start questioning it all, you just don't see any other way of doing things, So
yeah, I can relate to that at the end, as an expat also, you see it, no, on every expat meeting, it's okay, let's grab a drink. There's now it's starting to be a little bit different, or there is starting to be, I don't know, like hiking groups or like things to do, other activities. And but I felt that the most common thing, it's like organizing a chat and going for a drink, and that's it, no? Like that's the whole part of it. I wanted to ask you, because as far as I understood, like you decided to quit alcohol at some point, and that triggered you to try to help other people and becoming a coach. So you weren't a coach before that decision at all? How did you become a coach afterwards, and how do you transform this into a professional path?
Yeah, well, it's all very gradual. I mean, I still have my day job, and I coach. And when I started, questioning my whole relationship with alcohol, this is in the middle of COVID as well, so we were all, at home, and the great thing about sort of questioning your relationship with alcohol and changing how you drink and changing how you see alcohol is that you're also like taking full responsibility for yourself. So not only for your actions, because everybody's all about changing, the behavior, but it's also changing how you feel about yourself and your situation. And when I started doing my coach training, I wasn't happy in my day job. But with all the stepping into responsibility for my own, experience of life, be it with, in relation to the alcohol or in relation to, other people, and also in relation to the job that I didn't like. And then I dug in a bit and realized that I didn't like it because I had all these stories I was telling myself about, poor me. And so, it's like other people putting too much pressure on me and other people giving me too much work. And, so it's quite amazing really that when you start to question what's so important in your life and kind of, like in my case, the nightly wine was, absolutely essential to my evening. And you start to question things like that. You also question other things, and you start to question the truth of all these stories you have in your head. And I know a lot of people who started coaching and they left their like original job to go full-time coaching. And I realized I really like my job that I have, and I also really like coaching, and I have this like privilege to be able to do them both, So yeah, so that's an interesting development for me that I didn't even know was coming. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, it's interesting at least that you discover, I suppose that you discover a lot of like parts that you hide it to yourself or this kind of stuff. Wanted to ask you, because at the end, what are the highest benefits that you see, or like the highest points that the people that you help and your clients at the end tell you? I suppose there is some feedback after quitting. And
oh yeah, I mean, from the moment you start, it's all about being curious. Like traditionally, it's about just stop the behavior, just don't drink. But with coaching, it's like really a process of examining why you drink. And a lot of it, like it'll come down to the substance itself, that it's an addictive substance. And if you drink regularly, you're going to want to drink regularly. That's just the way it works, Yeah. Get a dopamine, little buzz, you want another one. That's just the way it works. And then there's also like the society aspect of it, that we're all like sort of trained that, if you want to have fun, you have a drink. And then you get to yourself. More layers, but you get to yourself. Mm-hmm. And we all have these stories about how alcohol, helps us be better somehow, be like more fun, more chill, more chatty, like whatever, come up with better stories. Some people more creative, And so I would carry these stories around with this. And then when you start questioning all that, you stop judging yourself all the time. And when you stop judging yourself, you start to like yourself for the person you are. And I think learning that self-compassion and like listening to yourself and what you need and how you actually feel, that's like the biggest benefit, because all the other health benefits, like, you know, the sleep you get, the anxiety that decreases, the like alcohol causes depression and anxiety. When I was drinking, I was having antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication at the same time. And, you know, since I stopped drinking, I had that, like I said, you start like talking to yourself nicer. You start answering those needs rather than just reaching for a glass of wine. Like, do I need a rest? Do I need a hug? You know, am I just hungry? Things like that. And so that's a huge benefit, that you're just actually more connected to yourself. Health-wise, like I said, sleep, amazing. Even a glass of wine, just one glass of wine in the evening is going to like disrupt your sleep. Your mental health is better. Like everything physical goes better. Like your digestion works better. Yeah, people say that their heart rate slows down. People lose weight, things like that. But I mean, all those health benefits, I guess everybody knows, but you still kind of do get that messaging that, you know, red wine is good for your heart and things like that, you know. And I even read one today about beer. It was something about 7 types of beer that are good for your gut, something like that. But, you know, There's always the paragraph where it says that actually alcohol irritates your gut. But anyway, so it's like, yeah, so it's just like it's just a whole package of feeling better. And I think, and then the most liberating thing is that, you know, when you don't actually feel like having a drink, you don't have a drink. But if you're constantly saying, okay, I mustn't have a drink, shouldn't have a drink, well, maybe I can have a drink next weekend. No, well, no, I said, but maybe I will. You know, the headspace that takes up, and just the stress of it. Even if you're not like a huge heavy drinker, it's still like, it's Friday. Ding ding. And your brain goes, okay, time for beer. You know, so that's hugely liberating and freeing. And so I think those are the benefits.
What's the time? Like, what is the process, the normal time span? Does it differ a lot between one person and the other? Like, when you coach with someone, how it expands this whole process?
Well, when I coach with someone, I start with it like 12 weeks, that's 3 months. So It depends. It does depend on the person, but that's when you think about it, that's such a short amount of time when you think of all the years you've been drinking. But it like usually by the time someone reaches out for, you know, actual help, to talk to someone or to join a group or to whatever, they've already tried a few times by themselves to stop drinking and not managed it. And so you're in that place where you're like, what is wrong with me that I can't just stop doing this thing that I want to stop doing, but I still want to drink, but I shouldn't, and that whole thing. So how I start is by saying that, well, let's stop trying so hard to stop drinking, and to turn it around to like a more experimental kind of curiosity-based work. And that means that's not just, you know, here you have permission to go out and get wasted every evening. It just means that we start taking a step back and looking at how that person feels before having a drink, during having a drink, and after having a drink. And has that drink lived up to everything, lived up to your expectations? Did it, deliver everything it promised? Was it a great night? Did you manage to stop, when you said you were going to stop? And so we start like really objectively looking at things with an experimental, through an experimental lens, and start, asking questions without that judgment I was talking about, and really look at all our triggers and what sets us off, and what feelings, what circumstances, things like that. So start with that kind of break from trying to stop drinking, and observe and note, and change the way you talk to yourself. And because like I said before, we start when we're kids, learning that alcohol is this essential element in life. So all that thinking is like, you've got, it's like in those old cartoons, you had the angel and the devil on the corner, on the shoulders, like one going, go on, it'll be fun, and the other one going, no, we're going to be good today. And it's like really becoming aware of all those thoughts and beliefs that we carry with us our whole life, and asking, like, is it true? Like, what's your actual physical experience of it being true? And so it's really interesting. It's really enlightening, and it can bring up a lot of stuff. It can bring up a lot of stuff, and thinking back to all those times, like where you had a drink and like what you were looking for,
Oh gosh, it feels like a very emotional process, also, like in the sense of like that people needs to open themselves in another level. It's not only about the alcohol itself; it's a lot of other things connected to it.
Exactly. I always say it's never just a glass of wine, It's it's definitely, because like the tradition is to just stop doing whatever behavior you want to get rid of, like stop with the sugar, stop with the coffee, stop with the alcohol. But we rarely stop to think, how does that make me feel? How do I feel when I want that thing? What is the emotion that's behind it? Like, and what's the emotion I'm looking for? Maybe I'm not trying to, get away from something. Maybe I'm just trying to, there's an emotion I'm after, and maybe I feel like it's in that glass of wine, or that mille-feuille au vin or something like that. So it's very much emotion based rather than behavior based. That said, I mean, we work towards an actual break from alcohol in order for the alcohol to leave your system, and to do life, to do things, to do feelings without a drink. And that's where, again, the experimental part of it comes in again. It's like experimenting with those situations where you'd normally be first at the bar ordering a cocktail. What are you going to do now? How are you going to handle that situation with people who are going to be there going, what do you want to drink? And you're not drinking? Why? So it's all very, getting out there and doing it,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you can imagine a little bit, or everyone can sympathize a little bit with the social part of it. Like everyone can understand a little bit, like the social pressure that is always there. That's very easy to understand. But how much of this process is also like the alcohol being inside of your body still? Like how much of the detox part of it, and your body getting used of not having that substance anymore? Because that's also like the abstinence, no? A little bit like when with the symptoms of leaving any other drug, there is a lot of talk about how your body processes the leaving of that substance through some time. What are the steps with alcohol? What is the most common thing that you see in there?
Yeah. Well, alcohol use is, like it's a whole big spectrum. So you'll have the, teetotaler and the champagne at Christmas people on this end, and then the people who are like physically, like chemically addicted to alcohol on the other end, who need medical help and medical supervision, and it's for whom it's actually extremely dangerous just to go cold turkey like that. And then, in between those two ends of the spectrum, there's sort of, everybody else who's a regular-ish drinker. And so it takes, if you're like a fairly regular drinker, it takes like 7 days the medical people say takes 7 days for alcohol to actually fully leave your system. And so the thing about alcohol and it being a drug is that the way your brain and your body works is that it's expecting it. So if you drink regularly, your body's reaction to alcohol like sort of kicks off before you've even had that glass. That's like we were talking about, 5 p.m. on a Friday. Your brain is going, come on lads, here we go, come on, and sees the bottle of beer or the glass of wine, or here's that, pop. And then it already gets that little, dopamine hit, and off you go, party central, way off you go for the glass of wine. So when you don't give it that, it feels extremely uncomfortable. And, you look at the clock and it's 5 p.m. on a Friday, and your brain will already have like given you a little taster of what's to come, even though you've decided it's not coming. And so you have that sort of hunt for the homeostasis. Your body's always trying to level out these things. So when you get a boost of like an unnatural boost, shall we say, or an unsustainable boost of something like dopamine, it's going to release something on the other end to like bring you down a bit so that you're on that, so you're more level. And so that's why it feels so uncomfortable for the first however long it's going to take. Everybody's a little bit different. And so that's the sort of your brain part. And then your body as well is when you start drinking, your body stops, sort of like digesting food and, doing other things to focus on eliminating the alcohol. So your body's just going, once you stop putting it in, it's just going to go full whack to clean out whatever's left in your system. And so people you can start sweating a lot. You can start, maybe not smelling like a rose, things like that. And having like wanting all the sugar, things like that, looking for the sort of the dopamine and all that. Yeah, and looking for all the sugar that's in the alcohol, and so it can feel like physically a little bit uncomfortable. But then again, depends how you look at it. If you look at it as your amazing bod, doing its thing and like detoxing you, then it doesn't feel so uncomfortable, But I would say anybody who's worried about how much alcohol they're drinking, that they really like say to your doctor, I've been drinking, but I'm going on a detox. I just want to check. I just want to be sure, is there something I should do apart from obviously drinking lots and lots of water, getting lots of sleep, and eating lots of protein? Because a coach isn't a medical professional, so it's always important to check with your doctor. Yeah,
makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, I suppose at the end it's a whole medical, mental and body process. It's good that at least let people know and inform someone. I will ask you a couple of more questions more before we finish the episode, if that's okay. The first one, it's like, what is the when it's the goal with everyone that you coach, it's quitting 100%, or do you have people who are coming just to reduce their habits, for example, or arriving to a level that they feel comfortable again? Where is the spectrum? I don't know how to say it.
It's very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting because like I myself never intended to stop drinking. I only ever went down that whole, sober curious road looking to reduce my drinking. There was, because in my mind, there was no way I was going to never have wine again, which is not something I say, but it's like I completely lost the desire to drink. And when people come talk to me, it is extremely rare that somebody says, right, that's it, I'm done, I do not want to drink again, I'm fed up with the whole thing. It's almost always to like take a break from drinking or to reduce, so that after the break they go back to sort of, in inverted commas, normal drinking, because we have this sort of, I guess, traditional view of like the good drinker, the normal drinker, and like the bad drinker who can't control themselves and things like that. So it's rare that someone will say, I never drink. I want you to help me to never drink again. It's always to moderate. But that is exactly why, of course, because we believe so firmly that alcohol has its place in our life, and it has an important place in our life. So of course, and until you like sort of unpack that a little bit and ask yourself a few questions and like start looking at how it became so important for you, apart from the the physical aspect of it, then you'll still want to go back to doing that thing that you don't want to do, but you still want to do.
Then in that sense, like, to complete this question, like how many of the people that you coach really they enter through with the idea of reducing and then saying, okay, whatever, I want just a break, whatever. How many of these people it's just like finishing the 3 months or the 12 weeks and saying, okay, I'm not drinking again? Is it the common thing that they arrive when they complete the whole thing and then people doesn't drink anymore in their lives?
It is, but I'll just say that that's another thing, you see, that we have, that we think in our society, is that if alcohol is like a problem, in inverted commas, you have to not ever drink again. You have to fix that problem by not ever drinking again. And so like words like, forever and never drinking again and like totally sober and teetotal and whatever those expressions are, can be sometimes counterproductive, because it's putting so much pressure on yourself to not do that ever again. And if you do, then you're a failure, you've messed the whole thing up, you have to start all over again, which is totally not true. You don't have to start all over again if you take everything you've learned with you and you just, again, with the curiosity and the experimental mindset, look at what happened, how you felt, and why you really had that drink. So it's really, again, not about the behavior, it's about how you feel. So I mean, I have no desire to have a drink, so I know I'm not going to have a drink next weekend, even if I'm out at the biggest party and someone, I don't know, shoves a 2003 Malbec in my face or something. There's no interest. So that the whole process is working towards what works for you and what makes you feel the best. If that's saying I'm never drinking again, that's it, I'm sober, inverted commas, and that works for you, then that's great. If saying I'm on a break and I'm just going to see how this break goes, if that works for you and makes you feel confident and makes you feel, bien dans tes baskets, as they say,
Mm.
then that's what works for you. So it's really like, yeah, after you've had like a decent break, like a month, for example, and you've been through situations, excuse me, where you thought a drink is absolutely, you couldn't do that without a drink, excuse me, like a party or a wedding or a funeral or something, and you've done it and you've built that confidence, then you go on to the next thing. You're like, maybe I can do this without a drink as well. So
You did it. The moment I did it, no, I suppose it's also like, okay, and nothing happened. So it's also like a build of
exactly.
free comfort. Yeah, so I would just say that for closing the episode, if you want to use the platform, of course, to just remember your social media tag, but also if you have any product coming or any workshop that you are doing soon, anything that it's in the horizon that you want to use the platform to use, to promote a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm on Instagram at Lose the Booze with Suze. Susan Hodgson is my name, and I would invite anybody to sign up for my newsletter, and I send that out about once a month with like any like info on anything that's coming up, and just general info, fun facts, and stories. I on my website, you can download a free video course to help you start thinking about all this stuff without having to quit drinking. Just get into that frame of mind of like asking some questions, and I have some like prompts and some questions you can ask yourself. So feel free to sign up for that, and also feel free to book a call with me. You can have a free call for an hour with me and chat about it, ask questions, and even just have a chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much again, Susan, for the time and for explaining your experience, but also like your tips and what you are doing with coaching people. I think it will be really helpful for all of those who want to take a break or change or quit 100%. So hope that some listeners will contact you if they are in this moment in their lives and they feel like this. So yeah, thanks again. Thank you so much for the episode.
Well, thanks a million. Thanks you. It's been lovely to chat.
This is Expat Experts. Support this podcast by listening us in Podimo and subscribe in Spotify and YouTube.